He is among the most influential popes in the history of the Church. He is one of only 3 popes to hold the title of the Great. The famed Gregorian Chants were named after him. He is one of the 4 great Latin Church Fathers. This is the story of Pope Gregory I, also known as Saint Gregory the Great or Pope Saint Gregory the Great. He is the patron saint of musicians, singers, students, and teachers. Gregory was born around the year 540 in Rome, which at that time was recently reconquered by the Eastern Roman Empire. His parents named him Gregorius, a Greek name which is vigilantus in Latin and watchful in English. His family was wealthy and owned working estates in Sicily and around Rome. It also had strong connections to the church. He was also part of the nobility as his father, Gordianus, was a patrician, senator, and for a time was the prefect of the city of Rome. This last role is equivalent to a modern mayor or governor. Gordianus also held the position of regionarius in the church. His was also a family of saints. His mother Sylvia and 2 paternal aunts, Drusilla and Emiliana, are honored by both the Catholic and Orthodox churches as saints. His great-great-grandfather was also a pope, Pope Felix III. Gregory's election as pope made his family the most influential and distinguished clerical dynasty of the period. Rome was consumed by plague, famine, and war during Gregory's early childhood. As a result, they went to their Sicilian estates, choosing to return only when he was about 9. Gregory's position meant that he was well educated. He had a meteoric ascent in government service when at 33 he had become prefect of Rome, as his father once did. When his father died, Gregory converted the family villa into a monastery dedicated to Andrew the Apostle. This was later rededicated as the San Gregorio Magno al Cielo when Gregory died. He had a deep respect for monastic life, and particularly the vow of poverty. He viewed being a monk as the ardent quest for the vision of our Creator. Violations of the monastic life and vows of poverty affected him deeply. In one well-known story, he became aware of a dying monk who had stolen 3 gold pieces. Gregory forced the monk to die alone, and upon death, threw the monk's body and the coins in a heap of manure. It is believed that he said, "Take your money with you to perdition." However, Gregory eventually had 30 masses offered for the monk to assist his soul before the final judgment. His 3 paternal aunts were nuns. When the 2 eldest died after seeing a vision of their ancestor, Pope Felix III, the youngest, soon abandoned religious life and got married. Gregory responded to this by quoting the Bible, saying, "Many are called, but few are chosen." In 574, Gregory became a monk. He later worked closely with Pope Pelagius II. He'd solicited his help in trying to heal the schism of the 3 chapters in northern Italy. However, this schism was not healed until well after Gregory was gone. In 579, the Pope chose Gregory as his apocrisiarius or the ambassador to the imperial court in Constantinople, a post Gregory would hold until 586. He was tasked with asking Constantinople to send military relief and oust the Lombards. Soon, however, it became clear that the Byzantine emperor's immediate efforts would be limited to just diplomacy and intrigue. They were too busy holding off the Persians and other threats. The imperial policy towards Italy had become evident. Despite Gregory's failure on this front, he had limited success on others. He cultivated connections with the Byzantine elite of the city, where he became extremely popular with the city's upper class, especially aristocratic women. Still, while Gregory may have become a spiritual father to a large and important segment of the aristocracy, this did not advance Rome's aims of getting a military delegation to aid the city. According to John the Deacon, there is no evidence that his tenure accomplished much towards any of the objectives of Pelagius II. Around this time, he also continued his theological disputes with the Patriarch Eutychius. He had earlier challenged Eutychius's views on palpability in front of the Emperor Tiberius, who acted as arbitrator. This later resulted in the burning of Eutychius's writings. This disagreement lasted until Eutychius, on his deathbed, recanted impalpability. In 585, Gregory finally left Constantinople for Rome, returning to his monastery on the Celian Hill. 5 years later, Pelagius II died from the plague, and Gregory was elected by acclamation to replace him. As was the norm during the Byzantine papacy, Gregory was approved by an imperial ucio from Constantinople the following September. Among his first acts upon becoming pope was writing a series of letters disavowing any ambition to the throne of Peter and praising the contemplative life of the monks. He bemoaned the burden of office as he missed the loss of the undisturbed life of prayer that he once enjoyed as a monk. He was more inclined to remain retired into the monastic lifestyle of contemplation. Still, Pope Gregory had strong convictions on missions. During this time, the Holy See had not been exerting effective leadership in the West for a while. Many bishops had little contact with Rome. He re-energized the Church's missionary work among the non-Christian peoples of Northern Europe. He sent the famous mission, often called the Gregorian Mission, under Augustine of Canterbury, the prior of St. Andrews, where he successfully evangelized the pagan Anglo-Saxons of Britain. They later set forth from England to the Netherlands and Germany and continued evangelization. The preaching of non-heretical Christian faith and the elimination of all deviations from it were key elements in Gregory's worldview, and it constituted one of the major continuing policies of his pontificate. His work during this time led some historians to describe him as the founder of the medieval papacy. During this period, the popes of Rome claimed both spiritual authority and worldly powers, vying with emperors for supremacy, ruling over the papal states, and legislating the norms of Christian society. Pope Gregory the Great also had an immense contribution to health and hygiene. The Pope urged his followers on the value of bathing as a bodily need. In his official documents, Gregory was the first to make extensive use of the term servant of the servants of God, or in Latin, servus servorum Dei, as a papal title, thus initiating a practice that was to be followed by most subsequent popes. He also stressed that pastors should serve as servants, not lords, over their flock. Even in those days, the Church had a practice of passing on a large portion of the donations it received from its members as alms. Gregory is known for his extensive administrative system of charitable relief of Rome's poor, who were predominantly refugees from the incursions of the Lombards. He devised a system whose philosophy was that wealth belonged to the poor and the Church was only its steward. Much of this money came from lavish donations from the families of Rome, who were eager by doing so to expiate their sins. He wrote in a letter, "I have frequently charged you to act as my representative, to relieve the poor in their distress, and I hold the office of steward to the property of the poor." Aside from money, the Church also received consumables such as food and clothing, investment property, real estate including agricultural lands and works of art. Gregory was also given a building from which the poor could apply for assistance at any time. But the Lombards still held a greater part of Italy and had brought the economy to a standstill. Outside, the Lombards were camped, while inside, the city was crowded with refugees, mostly poor. Pope Gregory realized that he couldn't wait any longer for Constantinople to act. He used the Church's resources as agents for general relief and to help the poor. Gregory also instituted extensive records. Every expense and revenue was carefully recorded to prevent waste and corruption. He was proactive. He aggressively required his churchmen to seek out and help needy persons. In a letter to a subordinate he wrote, "I asked you most of all to take care of the poor. And if you knew of people in poverty, you should have pointed them out. I desire that you give the woman, Pateria, 40 solidi for the children's shoes and 40 bushels of grain." He also replaced administrators who refused to cooperate or were not doing their job well. In the midst of this, he made sure that expenses matched income. There were times he would liquidate an investment property to accommodate the expenses. Money, however, was no substitute for food in a city that was on the brink of famine. The Church had revenue-generating farmland that produced goods of all kinds and were sold. Gregory intervened. Instead of selling the goods, he had them shipped to Rome for distribution to the people. He gave orders to step up production, set quotas, and put an administrative structure to monitor and enforce the new system. Soon, grains, wine, cheese, meat, fish, and oil began to arrive in Rome in huge quantities, where they were given for free to the people. For those who lived on the street or were too sick to get their monthly food supply, Gregory sent out a small group to get in touch with them and give them prepared food. It is said Gregory refused to dine until the indigents were fed. Gregory's approach and actions won the hearts and minds of the Roman people. They now looked to the papacy for government, ignoring the state at Constantinople. Gregory's reforms were not limited to feeding the people. He made a general revision of the liturgy of the Pretridentan Mass. He moved the Pater Noster immediately after the Roman canon. Gregory added material to the Hanc Igitur of the Roman canon and established the 9 Kyries at the beginning of Mass. He also forbade deacons to perform any of the musical portions of the Mass other than singing the Gospel. Gregory's reforms also extend to sacramentaries, or that part of the Roman Missal which contains the prayers and directives for Mass, and a number of sacramental formulas. These sacramentaries are referred to as Sacramentaria Gregoriana. His influence also extends to the Eastern Orthodox Church and Eastern Catholic churches. Gregory is credited as the primary influence in constructing the more penitential divine liturgy of the presanctified gifts, a fully separate form of the divine liturgy in the Byzantine Rite adapted to the needs of the season of Great Lent. Probably Gregory's most famous contribution, one that laymen are most familiar with, are the Gregorian Chants. Gregorian chants are a form of monophonic, unaccompanied sacred song mainly in Latin of the Roman Catholic Church. Gregory did not invent the chants despite the popular legend. Instead, his main contribution is his role in the compilation of melodies throughout the whole Christian world. 300 years after Gregory's death, this compilation took on the name of the Gregorian Chant. Gregory was also a prolific writer. Among his best-known writings are Moralia and Job. This is based on talks Gregory gave on the Book of Job. Pastoral Care, a handbook for bishops and pastors on how to guide souls. This became a standard text for centuries, widely copied and translated. Dialogues. This is a compilation of hagiographical stories, including a book dedicated to the popular life of Saint Benedict. This is a collection of 4 books of miracles, signs, wonders, and healings done by the holy men, mostly monastic, of 6th century Italy. Sermons. A collection of his homilies and preaching. Gregory died on March 12, 604. He was canonized almost immediately after his death by popular acclaim. He was greatly admired. Even Protestant reformer John Calvin admired him and called Gregory the last good pope. Gregory's feast day used to be March 12 or the day of his death, but as John XXIII's reforms forbade the full observance of most feasts during Lent, it was moved to September 3, the day of his episcopal consecration. In 1298, Pope Boniface VIII appointed Saint Gregory as among the first 4 doctors of the Church, along with Saints Ambrose, Augustine, and Jerome. Thank you for watching. What do you consider Saint Gregory the Great's main contribution to the Church? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Please help us share the good word by sharing this video. Also, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you.